Hey guys, this is Martin Perdomo, the Elite Strategist, and you're listening to Latinos and Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Jesus Reyes with me with the Legacy Group. He's a vice president of capital raising with the company, and he's an economist by trade. He spent 15 years working for HSBC in a multitude of capacities in private wealth, credit risk management, investment banking. Furthermore, Jesus worked for a bank in multiple countries. And prior to leaving HSBC, Jesus was the global account manager for the bank's relationship with other world's largest accounting and consulting firm. Jesus, welcome to Latinos and Real Estate Investing Podcast. Thank you for taking your time. And I look forward to having this conversation with you and learning. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Because I know that me reading your bio didn't do enough justice.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. And thank you very much for your listeners for tuning in. It's quite interesting that we're having this conversation today, the day after we begin Hispanic Heritage Month. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm a fellow Hispanic. I'm originally from Venezuela, as you would have guessed by the name. There aren't that many gringos by the name Jesus. So,
beautiful country, by the way. I went to Venezuela when I was, how old was I? I was 11, 12 years old. My aunt lived there for many years. So beautiful. And I went to a place called in Caracas, El Junquito.
El Junquito, great area.
Anyways, go ahead. I just had that thought, and
great. No, I appreciate it, and I'm glad to hear there's people out here who have good memories of Venezuela. So I'm originally from Venezuela, been in the U.S. for 22 years. Went to school here in the U.S. and like you mentioned, I worked for HSBC most of my career. I'm an economist by trade. Multitude roles here in the U.S., but also with the bank in Latin America. My big focus has always been Latin America. So throughout the years, different roles covering commodities, trading companies, construction companies, telecom companies, all throughout Latin America. So from Argentina up to Mexico. Then in 2018, I was actually stationed down there in Buenos Aires with the bank, and it's a fantastic experience of seeing Economist restart. And then twists and turns in life. Then at the beginning of this year, I actually joined, the beginning of this half of the year, I should say, I joined the team at Legacy Group. Legacy Group is an institution, it's an alternative asset manager that targets impact investing opportunities in Latin America. So I think it was finally one of those things where I'm like, all my different circles of influences are coming together, right? So it's impact investing is Latin America. I get to do that out of Miami, and then go back and forth to Colombia as need be. And so that's who I am.
That's fantastic. I know that you guys are doing a lot of neat things in real estate and how you guys invest. First of all, for those that don't know what impact investing means, can you please elaborate on what that means?
No, and actually, I think that's a great question. And I'll answer it with an example, and then I'll go into it. So yesterday came out the news, the owner of Patagonia has decided to give his company away to a trust, so that way they can go and take all the profits and invest it into programs that are helping improve the environment.
Yes.
That's impact investment. Impact investment is when your company is not only delivering profits and returns for its investors, for its shareholders, but the strategy and the decisions that they're taking have a positive impact in the community and the environment where they belong, right? So that may be things such as being green, right? So you install solar panels, so that way they can be the source of power for your plants, or you put in place new technology, so that way you can reduce water consumption by 20,000 gallons a year, or you decide, you know what, I'm going to stop using mules and horses and oxen in my farm, so that instead of I'm going to use electric scooters to be able to move around the farms, right? That's all impact investing. You're creating a positive impact to the environment. Then you have the point of the social impact, right? And social impact means I am going to focus my strategy in making sure that I'm employing minorities. I'm employing communities at risk. I'm going to focus on creating jobs for single mothers, and I'm going to put the infrastructure in place. So those single mothers have where to have their kids be looked after while they're at work. That's what social and impact investing is. you're doing more than just generating very nice profits. You're giving back to the community, you're giving back to the environment, you're helping the communities to also create wealth, which is kind of like similar to what a lot of your listeners are looking at doing.
Correct. Okay. So how does the legacy group, now tell us how you guys are doing that.
Absolutely.
And how you guys tie it all together.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So Legacy Group been around now for a little bit over 5 years. And in 2017, we actually acquired a group called Green Coffee Company. We are a US company that has operations throughout Colombia. We are actually Colombia's largest coffee producer, one of the many milestones of which we're very, very proud to actually have achieved. We have over 25 farms in the area of Antioquia in Colombia.
So great coffee too.
It's fantastic.
Coffee, it's amazing coffee.
Exactly. So we're very proud. We're very proud of what we've achieved, because not only are we in pace to continue to deliver great returns for our investors, but we're delivering great things for the community, right? So from the environment standpoint, some of those examples I was mentioning, so solar panels, we've installed solar panels in our farm, so we're moving away from fossil fuel power to green energy power, right? We're doing things as we don't use plastic in any of our processes, so that way we're not putting any plastic into the environment, because we know the first plastic bag that was ever created is still floating somewhere around the world because it won't degrade, right? So those are some of the things that we have been doing from the environmental standpoint. We're also doing things like we have changed our technology so that we can save tens of thousands of gallons of water a year in the process that we do to be able to farm and process the coffee cherry and the beans. So that's some of the things that we have been doing, right, over this last 5 years, and we'll continue to do as we continue to grow. That's on the environmental side. On the social side, some of the examples that I mentioned are some of the examples of things that we have done, right? So we hire locally. All of our staff are actual employees of the firm who receive a bi-weekly paycheck. And I know it may sound a little bit like, duh, you're supposed to, that's what happens. But in the agricultural business, and especially in Latin America, that's not the case. Most of those farms and most of the company, you don't have employees who have a bi-weekly paycheck, that have a pension plan, and they have health insurance, and they've got all these fringe benefits that most of us who may have been employed in corporate America are accustomed to receiving. So those are some of the impact investment on the social side that we have actually been doing, which I think speak very highly to what our founders, right? So Cole and Adam, who started the company 5 years ago, believe, right? It's not only being able to us deliver for ourselves and for our shareholders great returns, but also being able to ensure that our staff, right, that our employee, our people, and the community that we surround are better off today than they were yesterday by actually having us as being part of the community, which I think it speaks highly, I think, of any company that's doing things like that, not to toot our own horn, but because we want to make sure that, again, we will have kids, or I have kids, or you have kids, and want to make sure that they're going to get something better, just more than just a nice bank account, right? Because what does it make me? What good is it if I have a lot of money in my account, but I can't really enjoy it because there's no clean drinking water, there's no clean air, right? And then for this community, especially in rural South America, I mean, we're helping them create wealth, so that way they can, if they so choose to, be able to go and leave rural areas and be able to get better education and be able to sort of leave what could potentially be a sort of a circle of repetition, what prior generations have done. Because all what you can do is go and pick coffee. Well, there's hopefully we're giving people opportunity to be able to choose for themselves and not have their futures chosen for them.
So what's your business model? You guys sell coffee? I mean, is that it? I mean, I get what you're doing because we do something similar, but not exactly I explained to you earlier, we're in the affordable housing space, but where's the real estate component to what you do and how do you turn your profit?
Absolutely. Great. So we are actually a coffee grower and producer, right? So we have tens of thousands of acres of producing farmland throughout Colombia that are producing tens of thousands of pounds of coffee cherry per day. So our money is made from the production and commercialization of coffee beans.
So
Right
selling
now,
coffee beans.
correct. We're selling coffee beans in green. So what I'll do, a little parenthesis for everyone to know. So coffee comes from a tree and comes in a cherry.
Okay.
Right. So imagine in a cherry, maybe the size of a grape, maybe smaller, maybe bigger. And in there you have 2 to 3 coffee beans, which is what you end up seeing in your in the coffee bag. We own the entire chain from the nursery, where we have a team of single mothers planting the pods, so that way we can actually have our own supply of trees that we go and take into the farms and we plant. And then we've got a team who's actually going and nursing them throughout the year, and then harvesting the beans that then are put into our facilities, our processing mills, and then we go and get the bean out, and that bean gets washed, gets dried, then puts in bags, and it's then gone out and sold into the market for the likes of like the Starbucks and the such, right? And then they will take that coffee, then they'll roast it, and then they'll make their blends and then go and sell into supermarkets and the such. So our business is the business of growing coffee, so that way we can go out to the market and sell it to those participants who have that direct to consumer business, where they're selling either ground coffee or coffee beans for you to go and enjoy your morning, Joe. So that way you can actually be able to get on with your day and start your day, most likely.
Gotta tell you, sounds like a recession-proof business. Everyone drinks coffee no matter what. I'm curious to know, how did the company do during 2000 and during the Great Recession in 2008?
Great question. So we've been around since 2017. So we are post that one. But what I'll say is this: it's correct when you think about, and I always joke and I say that 98% of Western world needs what we make in order to be able to actually speak to their significant others in the morning. Right? So I don't want to say I'm not giving anyone advice, but I'm going to say this is pretty exactly.
It's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate.
To be honest, like no, I don't want to talk to you, my son. I'm like, I haven't had coffee, so go and do 10 push-ups. Give it time. But it is exactly so. It is necessity that most of us in the Western world have, and it's growing further and further in Asian and Eastern cultures. Consumption of coffee, right? We are in the business of producing that basic staple that most companies, again, like I mentioned, like Nestle's and Starbucks and Nespresso need in order to be able to supply us with coffee. We're very proud of course, our coffee. It's very good quality. Not I'm saying just because it's ours, but also because we're able to tell you, once I deliver this bag of 70 kilos of coffee at your door, call it Mr. Client who's going to buy, I can say hand over heart that from the moment that bean was in a nursery all the way until I deliver it to you, I have been responsible for it. So I'm able to tell you that impact investing has been truly delivered in this product that I'm getting to you at your doors. So I'm very proud of it because, of course, it's the team and people that we have throughout the chain, right? Out in Salgar, in Medellin, and here in the US. We're very proud of what we're doing, and we're ensuring that throughout this whole process, we are delivering not only so that our shareholders can receive accretion on their investment and profits, but also the environment is also benefiting from it. So it's something very, very unique that only us can really say about it in Colombia, just because, of course, I have the entire value chain thereof. Other brands in the US, they do sell Colombian coffee, but they're buying from someone such as ourselves, and then they go on to do their direct-to-consumer component, and they'll go and roast it, and then they'll combine it with other coffee beans to make their specific blends and whatnot. We are unique in the respect that we actually control our entire supply chain, and our goal is to then, of course, continue growing into that path of being able to deliver now to our customers not just green bean but also roasted bean, and that goes to the component of our aim is to then continue to grow as we've been growing, to be able to get ourselves into having a US presence where we can import our own coffee from Colombia and be able to roast it here in the US, and then be able to deliver to the market a roasted coffee component. Another thing that I'm very, very excited and goes to this impact investing is you'll hear it more often now, is the no waste economy, right? I hate using the word no waste, but really what we're trying to do, especially in our business, in Green Coffee Company, which is our portfolio company in the coffee space, is that we have, I should say, decided that we're going to try to use everything that is involved in the process of making coffee to generate the least amount of waste and the highest return for our investors. So right now, I take the cherry, I wash it, I cut it, I take the beans out, then the pulp gets discarded, right? That's waste. Well, it's about 80% of the cherry gets thrown out because I only use the bean. But we have found out that we can take that cherry, the pulp, and then we can go and ferment it, and we can make ethanol from that. And ethanol is the basics for alcohol, right? I can make vodka, gin, and brandy. So one of the goals that we have in trying to be as conscientious for our stakeholders and the environment and our shareholders is, you know what? Let's not go and throw this cherry out. Let's actually go and make some money out of it. Let's not create more waste. Let's go and ferment it. Let's go and distill it. And let's go and make some vodka. So our aim is by 2024, use our entire harvest to make some ethanol and be able to generate about 38,000 bottles of vodka per day.
That's really impressive.
That will reduce significantly our amount of waste, but also it's going to increase significantly the revenue that the company is going to be able to generate. So our aim, hopefully by 2025, is that we'll be a company that not only generates revenue from selling coffee, either green or roasted, but also a company that's generating revenue from the sale of alcohol that has its origins in a coffee cherry. And then also, last but not least, there's one last byproduct of the process. Once you wash the bean, it creates this white film. It's called parchment. That parchment is very rich in antioxidants. And so people who are in the tea business or people who are in the pharma business have an interest in getting that parchment because they can, of course, use it to create byproducts and for which they can sell. So our goal is to be able to take the entire cherry and be able to maximize its value thereof by actually generating revenue off of it. So again, increasing our revenue to the maximum possible point, generating profits by also helping the environment by not generating any waste. So that's some of the stuff that we've been doing that's our business model. That's what we're trying to do. That's our goal.
As you guys know or may not know or heard me before, always talk about business is an intellectual sport. And this is a really good example into business being an intellectual sport. Here, these really smart people that took some time to think, they buy real estate to sell coffee, to grow coffee, and they figured out a way by putting some think time, figure out a way to take what they would normally waste to create another revenue of income. That's brilliant, right? And this took some time and some thought, and this didn't happen overnight. You have some smart people in your leadership team. I can tell just by this conversation and with the concept that you just told me, and some disciplined people that actually gave it some thought and figured, hey, how can we maximize the profits on what we're doing? And to you, listener, maybe listening right now, and you may be saying, hey, but what does this have to do with real estate? Well, this is not really much to do with real estate, this particular conversation. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But what it does have to do, if there's anything that I'm taking away from it, is the power of thinking, right? The power of spending some time to think on how you can make things better. And this is what this group has done. The Legacy Group is doing, is figuring how they can zero waste, impact investing, and how to make things better. And if you only took some time to think, if you want to be an entrepreneur, whatever business it is, entrepreneur, real estate, whatever the business is, it's going to require some think time. It's going to require some strategizing time. It's going to require some, how can I make this work? And Jesus, along those lines, we know that you're an economist by trade. I heard a joke once, and I hope you find it funny. God made economists to make astrologers look smart, to make astrologers look good. Just because a lot of economists, they just gas and they get a lot of things more wrong than they do right. Not saying that that's you. I just thought that was funny.
It is funny, and I think that saying and a broken clock is right at least twice a day. And those are probably the two best sayings that would actually describe an economist. Absolutely. it's any economist that tells you that they're going to get it right, they're probably already wrong. And yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, like, and I listened to some of your episodes, and around you talk about inflation and rates and whatnot. I'm like, my interest on inflation rate may be completely different, because if I have no debt and I'm lending to people, I want rates to be up, right? But if I'm someone that's got leverage, I'm saying, no, I want rates lower. So the Federal Reserve and any monetary policy setting organism, it's never going to be able to appease everyone. So quote unquote, they're always going to get it wrong on the eyes of someone, right? Because you raise rates too much, I don't like it. Or you didn't raise rates enough, I don't like it either. So yeah, absolutely. Economists, we're in that group of people that happen to get things more often than not wrong, and still get to keep their jobs.
That's right.
Which is the most important part, right? They get to keep their jobs.
I've heard that before. So, I mean, I'd just like to get your perspective. You know, we're in a changing environment, right? As you know, with inflation, as you mentioned a moment ago, unemployment is on the rise. I think that a lot of it is not being showed on the media. A lot of it is, I think there's a lot more bad news that's not being told to the regular American people, except for people like us that are studying and looking and paying attention. But it's going to be mainstream real soon. I think after the election here in November, a lot of the stuff is going to be mainstream. That's another story. But I just like to get your take as to what you're seeing and what your professional opinion as to what do you see unfolding here over the next 18, 24 months with the Feds going in the direction that they're going with this.
So yeah, and I'll say, and there's two questions there. Number one, on for your listeners and the real estate. Yeah, I'd like to mention, we are constantly buying real estate, and I'll just sort of give you a little bit of a glimpse. I mean, we have our land holdings, and that's what we mostly acquire, of course, because I need agricultural land to be able to grow our farms, right?
Claro.
And to be able to grow our coffee. I mean, our expectation. So just, so in 2018, we bought 607 acres of producing land in Colombia. In 2020, about 1,700 acres of land.
A lot of land.
2021, we bought 2,100 acres of land. Our goal for this year is to acquire at least 1,900 acres of land. And then our expectation is by the end of 2023 of next year, that we will have acquired an additional 8.5 thousand acres of land. So there is a real estate component
to it. Absolutely.
For your clients, for your listeners to know. So like, yes, not only that, we're looking at buying land here in the US so that we can actually set an industrial complex so that we can actually go and roast our coffee, right? And potentially also having distillation in the event that once we start having our ethanol production, we need to go then and convert that into vodka. So there is a land component here, and there's a real estate component access for this. So I just wanted to make sure that your listeners. And then on your question on inflation, yes, there is inflation. Again, this is kind of like when you're studying economics and you kind of try to do a formula to be able to figure out what's going to happen, right? There's a gazillion potential different
outcomes,
variables, and then of course there's even more outcomes possible given how many variables you have put in. Yes, there's inflation. There's this inflation that we are experiencing now started because there was a supply side issue, right? We went into lockdown. We went into issues with production capacity, jams in the supply chain, and our ports were. So there's all the stuff that started causing our inability to get to the consumers the assets that they needed. So we started driving inflation up because we still, a lot of us had money, right? We're getting all this economic support from the different central governments, and that was what was going on. So we created this inflation. Now we have this inflation we're trying to control. There's two ways in which we can actually grow our economy, right? Is by the consumption side. And now we have we have pressure to continue to consume because you don't want to lose the value of the assets that I have in my pocket, right? I don't want my dollar to be worth less. So if today I can buy a whole loaf of bread, I don't want to then only be able to acquire half a loaf of bread by a year now. Mm-hmm. So I'm buying it today. So that kind of it. And the only way that the Federal Reserve is going to be able to bring that inflation under control, right? Because there's so much the Federal Reserve can control from international markets, is we have to increase interest rates. We have to give consumers an incentive to save, to delever, to stop consuming, right? Or to stop consuming extra, which is what really is going to happen. Because at the end of the day, we're going to have to pay for housing for those who rent. We're all going to have to pay for our cars and whatnot. But the question is, all that additional expenditure that is happening, how do we get it controlled? The Federal Reserve, different than any other central bank around the globe, with the reputation that it has, that it's got a dual mandate, right? So it's full employment and an inflation target of 2%.
2%. Mm-hmm.
And that is a very, very difficult balancing act to get right, because at times they've got competing interests. Mm-hmm. So technically, we have decided our natural unemployment rate was 6% and lowered to 4% because we breached that 6% and inflation wasn't picking up. So now the Federal Reserve is in a place, in my opinion, where they say, you know what, those 75 basis points up to 100 basis point rate hikes are feasible because I need to bring that inflation target under control. And if I bring employment up to 6% or 5%, I can quote unquote afford it because it's still below that natural unemployment rate that I've sort of set, that economists, my fellow colleagues in the economics world, mm-hmm. have said as here's the minimum rate of mm-hmm. inflation the unemployment that I can have and not cause unwanted inflation. So sadly, yes, we're heading into that direction. As an economist, I'm going to call it brainwash. Okay, this is the parameters that we're going to use to read inflation and CPI and economic growth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, a 0.1% decrease month over month is it negligible? Yes, it's negligible. Hopefully, it'll continue to be that way, and hopefully it continue to go down. There are, of course, a lot of things that go into the calculation of inflation. So while we've seen the price of oil come down significantly, and we have seen the price of gas come down, there's a lot of sticky numbers, right? So normally we are very happy to increase prices, but I'm not really happy to go and lower them again, right? So there's some of that. We've got in economics, we've got leading, coincidental, and lagging indicators. And while some of the leading indicators are showing us that there's decrease in inflationary pressure, there's other things that are still showing a resistance for that inflation to come down. And one of them, of course, continues to be uncertainty as to what's going to happen. Now we're approaching winter, what's going to happen? There's still not sufficient gas coming out of going into Europe. What's going to happen? I think that there's a lot of noise, but then you realize in the US, I don't really depend on whatever gas production there is out of Russia because I don't import it from there. Most mm-hmm. of the oil and gas consumption that is used in the US is produced locally, produced in Canada. Mm-hmm. Some of it in Mexico gets imported here and we handle it. So from that standpoint, we don't have a supply issue, but of course we are subject to those fluctuations that will happen in international markets, and rightfully so. As a producer, you're going to say, wait a second. If the international market is saying that this barrel should be 98, not 81, okay, fine. I'm going to sell it at 98, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of things that go there. There is inflation, absolutely, and we are now in a market which I still continue to see there's a lack of studies related to on the labor side. And the biggest challenge that we actually have is on the labor side. There's still 2 job openings for every American who's looking for a job. Think about it. There's still 2. So if I were today to go and pick up, I would actually have to choose which 2 of these jobs I actually want to.
I've never experienced that in my life. I've never seen that in my life, in my 44 years of life.
And think about it. And today we're only at 2. Earlier this year, we're almost at 4.
Yeah, I remember that.
So a lot of companies have started cutting out or canceling or freezing hiring and whatnot to try to alleviate that pressure. And that's another factor. We just went through a global pandemic where sadly many of us lost loved ones. They were workers. What we hadn't realized, and I don't think people have gone and done the math. It's like, what, 1 million people? Mm-hmm. What were the ages? I'm sure there were people who were older and whatnot. But I know people who were my peers. I know 3 my age. I'm 38. So mm-hmm. one was 42, and the other 2 were 38, who died during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Those are lawyers. Those are bankers. Those are people who are no longer part of the labor market, mm-hmm. right? We have a gap. Let's just say that it was 50% of that million people that died were people who were in the labor market. That's a big number of people that we no longer have, right? That's why we have this pressure for higher wages, because I need to fill the gaps that those people, I'm using these three examples, right? So 2 bankers and 1 lawyer that died. We need to fill those. Those are clients that need a banker and need a lawyer. We've got to get it out of somewhere. And sadly, there's also a massive gap of knowledge, because these million people that died, each one of them had a wealth of knowledge in whatever they did, but also disappeared. So that's also why we're seeing a little bit of that decrease in production, in productivity. Not so much that we're all working from home. It's the fact that all of a sudden we have all this group of people who were laid off or who decided to retire early, all these people that died. All of a sudden, I've got these younger people, so my cohort, some people slightly older than us, who may have not been fully ready to take on these more senior roles, and everyone else got shifted up. And you're like also going like, wait a second, I need to sort of do a lot of this trial and error to make sure that I got it right. So that's where it's a lot of combinations, and this is where I go and say on behalf of everyone who's an economist, this is why we at times get it wrong, because there's a lot of components that go into
there's a human element.
Exactly, which is why economics is taught in the School of Social Sciences and Humanity, and that's why you graduate with a Bachelor of Arts and not a Bachelor of Science. You get a Bachelor of Arts, not a Bachelor of Science, because it's not a science. In finance, I can tell you, if interest rates increases, right, the net present value of this cash flow is going to go up or down. I can tell you that with certainty.
No doubt about it.
The formula of net present value, future present value, it's set, it's a formula. In economics, I cannot tell you what's going to happen with economic growth if I move the interest rates from 0.25 to 0.75 with 100% certainty, because guess what? There's 370 million Americans. Each one of them is going to feel that. And guess what? And after I move that rate, the rest of the world goes and says, hold your horses. Why am I going to keep my money in euro? Why won't I go and put it in dollars, right? Yeah. And so we've seen it. So if I bring it back to Green Coffee Company and stuff, we've seen, let's just add La Nina, right? So La Nina has also decimated by and large the coffee production out of Brazil, which is the world's largest Arabica coffee producer. And what does that mean? That also means that the cost for the price that I'm able to go and command in the market when I'm going to sell my very high quality Arabica coffee, may I ask, and also has just gone up. So there's and again, that's not fault of anyone, right?
That's not nature. That's just
nature, right? Nature's just saying, oh, you think you're going to do that? Well, hold my beer. And all of a sudden, Brazil has had very little rain, so now it's on all their coffee production is expected to be at like 55% of what it should have been. But we've been lucky enough that in Colombia, we had a lot of rain in 2021. So 2022, we've had the right amount of rain and sunshine. So our production, in the case of us in Green Coffee Company, we're 11% ahead of plan. And we're just getting started into the peak season of our harvest, right? So our original plan is for this year for Green Coffee Company to generate about $13 million in revenue and about $2 million in EBITDA. Well, I'm already running ahead of plan. So hopefully it means that my number is going to be close to 15 million in revenue. It's probably going to be 2 million plus in the EBITDA
tell
side.
People,
so
please tell people what EBITDA stands for.
Sure, EBITDA is absolutely, that's a good. So it's earnings before taxes, depreciation, interest, and amortization, and it's a financial metric that we normally use in business for profitability and for valuation. Right, a lot of companies, once they're going to go public, they'll use that EBITDA and say, okay, fine, we're worth 10 times our EBITDA or 100 times our EBITDA or EBITDA. So from that standpoint, again, after you've taken account the entire human component of all of our preferences that go into play, then you have to go and say, hello, Mother Nature, which way you want to go today? Are you gonna work with us? Are you gonna work against us this time?
So basically, I mean, I'm hearing it, the legacy group, because of the business and the nature of the business here. And while you guys buy real estate, obviously you got to buy the land, which is amazing. But what you guys do your uniqueness of what you guys do is that you buy the land, but you also operate the land and you profit from the land. Absolutely. Opposed to a guy like me that buys the land and puts people to live in it, and I operate it that way. You guys operate it from producing, having the land produced for
Absolutely.
you.
But then again, your land is zoned for multifamily or residential.
Mhm.
My land is actually zoned for it. And to that point, I will like say, not only do I buy land so that I can grow coffee, but also buy land to protect it, right? So about 30% of every farm that I acquire, it's protected land. I need to protect it because it's got waterways, because it's got because I need it to protect bees, or it's a bird sanctuary, or it's a forest. We do that. So we are not only buying to generate profit, but also buying to protect it because we need it. Let's be honest. If we don't get it, if we don't have bees, the whole world is in a world of pain.
Mhm.
So that is key. So each one of us are using the land for the zoning that it's required to generate the highest value thereof, right?
That's
So in
fantastic.
your case, you're doing what you need to do because it's real estate has gone really expensive, so we're investing in affordable housing. In our case, we're buying land. We're buying land from families who are saying, "I no longer want to be in the coffee business. My family's been in this for 5 generations. I'm done. Here, take the land. We'll sell it. We want to go and do something else." For the record, the normal ebb and flow of business, when you look at historically, normally after 3 generations, people want to say, "You know what? I no longer want to really be directly involved in the family business. I want to cash out and go and do something else." So we've had this advantage in which we're able to go in and work with local families who are saying, "You know what?
We're done.
We're done. We want to go and do something else." Our sons want to be lawyers and doctors and engineers and whatnot. They're going to go and do something else, and we've gone in and bought it to ensure that those lands which have been allocated for agricultural business continue to be used for agricultural business and are continuing to derive the maximum value that we can do from them. I mean, if I for instance explain, we're going from, I can say, 25 million trees on our aim again to be able to generate $15 million in revenue this year, $2.5 million in EBITDA, where our goal is to be able to be by 2025 over $100 million in revenue and over $30 million in EBITDA. And that's all wealth that we want to create and we want to generate so that our shareholders and our stakeholders, right, our employees and the communities in which can benefit and can be better off. So I think that there's multiple ways to skin the cat. There's multiple ways in which we can actually work together in real estate or in any of our different areas as any of us who are entrepreneur to make the most out of it in a way that not only is helping us secure our present, but also the future of generations, while also helping the environment, while also helping people be able to generate generational wealth that can be transferred on. So that if my son-in-law says that he wants to go and do something else and it's not what I want to do, that's fine. We have the ability of continuing doing that. I'm the son of an oil man. My grandfather was a welder. So he invested in education so that his kid could go and do whatever he wanted, right? And my dad said he wanted to be an engineer. And my dad had 3 sons and he said, "You know what, here, I'm going to pay for your education. You're going to go and do whatever it is that you want to do." And he got 2 lawyers and an economist, no engineers, right? So it's kind of that process where I think we all have to use the talent or the assets that we've got for the best. And I think that's one thing that I'm very proud about the work that Legacy Group and especially we've been doing it in GCC is doing that. It's using our God-given talents to make sure that we are working closely with the community, our investors, our employees to generate high returns, but also be able to make the communities where we operate a better place than they were 5 years ago.
So if I'm an investor and I'm listening and I'm really feeling what you're saying and I'm like, man, that's a really unique way and I wanted to partner up with you and Legacy and maybe invest, because you talked about, you use a lot of fancy words, which is good which is good because people learn, right? People listening to the podcast can learn, and we're all always learning. Someone wants to maybe invest with you guys.
Perfect.
And maybe I'm like, listen, I like that, or maybe I like to diversify my investments, and while I'm investing I can also have an impact, employ single mothers and everything you mentioned. How would we get a hold of you? How would people connect with you? And what deals do you have going on right now?
Absolutely. So I'll give you my contact details so that way the team, anyone of your listeners wants to reach out. So you guys can reach out to me. So my name is Jesus, right? So Jesus Reyes, my email is Jesus. So JESUS.R as in Robert at legacy-group.co. And then to your second question, what you can do. So we have recently launched, so I'm going to say recently, Wednesday of last week. So this our meeting today to have a conversation is very, very timely. We've launched a $25 million Series C. Last week, these monies are being raised so that we can continue this strategy that we've talked about, buying land, investing in land, developing land, so that we can continue growing our coffee production, so we can execute on our strategy of selling parchment and selling and fermenting the cherry pulp so that we can generate ethanol so we can make vodka. Our goal is to continue growing our company. Like I mentioned, by 2024, we will have executed on this stage of our strategy to be a $100 million company in revenue, $34 million in EBITDA, and prepare the company for either a sale to a strategic partner or to go and do an IPO by 2026. Our goal, based on recent comparables that we've actually seen in the market, is that by that time, in the execution of our strategy, our company will be worth about $1 billion, $1.2 billion. So if you were to invest today in our going round, right, and you invest about $100,000, you're forecasting to see a return of about 1,040%. So an 11-time multiple.
By when? By
2026. 26.
By 26. But if you go public.
Correct. When we go public, or we sell the company, correct. That's when we expect that we'll be at the prime position to be able to do a transaction.
I'm not familiar with the syndication you're doing. You said, what was it you called it?
It's a Series C. So
Series C.
Yeah. So
it's accredited investors?
Accredited investors, preferably, absolutely. People who are not accredited investors, there's certain disclosures that we'll have to make sure that they are able to execute and sign off. But yeah, I mean, when you're talking about an 11-time multiple on your investment, given how you look at, especially how difficult right now it is to get an 11 cap rate on real estate right now, how difficult it is to get an 11-time return on digital assets or the stock market. Here we're giving you an opportunity to come and invest your money into, again, something that 98% of most Americans and most people in the Western world need as soon as they wake up in order to just be able to function. So we're not saying that, hey, come invest with us in something that has never been tested in the world, that's never been tried out. Like this is coffee. And the reason why I think we have a very compelling case and our competitive advantage is that we actually have the entire supply chain. It's ours, right? I own from the moment I get the seed into the Ellen pot and I put it to the nursery, all the way through to the ability to grow it, farm it, harvest it, wash it, mill it, and then go and sell it into the market. So that's really where I think it's a great opportunity for all of your listeners and all of their network, and anyone who's within their network to consider participating in this Series C. It's a $25 million out of $100 million that we're raising. We're also raising some debt to be able to execute on this strategy and be able to get you guys the returns that we believe we're able to deliver, to be able to give back in the community. Just like I mentioned, a few things that we've done is that we don't use plastic. No plastic at all, right? We've switched over from fossil fuel to renewable energy to power our operations. We have full control of the supply chain. We have implemented top-notch technology that helps us save thousands of gallons of water in our production per year. We employ large amounts of local staff in Salgar, in rural Colombia, and especially parts of the population that are underemployed and that are at risk, right? So there's an ability not only to be able to receive very high returns, but also be able to do a positive impact right now in Colombia, but also into the US as we look at executing the strategy and be able to create jobs here in the US. And last but not least, which is part of this capital raise, it's a non-voting equity what you're purchasing, and you gain a 6% cumulative dividend. So you go and invest $100,000 this year, say we don't pay dividend this year, well, now guess what? Your investment is now $106,000 next year, and then it will grow at 6%. It will accrue a 6% dividend next year. We don't pay the dividend. Now you're $100,000, which was 106, and went up. So we want to make sure that you
So is that
fully
like
compensate.
that's a preferred return, like when we do
Exactly.
a syndication. So your
Correct.
preferred return is 6%.
That's correct.
And then, okay, that's pretty good. Well, thank you so much, Jesus, for being here. We're out of time, brother. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom, all your knowledge. Guys, it sounds like a great opportunity. My advice is definitely look into it. Go to visit legacy-group.co. Check them out. I will tell you that for sure, investments like this work, and go check them out. Jesus sounds like not sounds. He is very knowledgeable in everything that he just shared with us. And go. What I'm going to advise my listeners is go look at the leaders. Right, go study about the leaders, and I'm sure they got strong leaders. Every company rises and falls with its leaders. Jesus wouldn't be there if they wouldn't be good leaders.
Absolutely, they are.
Right.
And again, my email is jesus.r@legacy-group.co. Please email me. Happy to set up a call. Happy to answer any questions. Again, anything that we can do, please, by all means, reach out. And then again, I really appreciate you for having me over in your show, and I love the show. So please keep up.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Really appreciate it. Guys, you've been listening to Latinos in Real Estate Investing Podcast. If you like this episode and you're listening to it, give it a thumbs up or drop some comments, and let's talk to Jesus about it. We're going to tag Jesus in here. Jesus can answer your questions. If you have any thoughts or concerns, go ahead and email Jesus directly. He just gave you his emails if you'd like to connect with him. And thank you guys for listening. Really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to continue to watch videos like this one, make sure you click this video right up here. I think you might like it. Also, if you want to learn how to create wealth through real estate investing, make sure you check out my online course. The links to that course is down below, where I share with you how to get your first deal within 60 days. Thank you for watching. And again, peace out.